live longer, age better. A brand new fitness feature from the Not Old Better Show and the American Council on Exercise, ACE. This is where science meets strength, and aging is just another word for thriving. Joining us always is Dr. Sabrena Jo, Senior Director of Science and Education at the American Council on Exercise. She's here to break down the real research and share how movement, mindset, and motivation can help you live longer and age better. Get ready to move smarter, feel stronger, and live fully. And now, here's your host, the award-winning Paul Vogelzang.
Thank you, and welcome to the Not Old Better Show Live Long Better series. I'm your host, Paul Vogelzang. You know, May is National Physical Fitness and Sports Month, a reminder that staying active isn't about competition. It's about living well, staying independent, and feeling strong in the years that matter most. Of course, our guest always on the Live Long Better series is Dr. Sabrena Jo from the American Council on Exercise, who brings us back to basics in the best possible way. We're talking about two simple, powerful tools that can reshape how we age. They're strength training and something you might not expect, morning sunlight. Yep, this is just going to be an eye-opening episode for you all. From building muscle and protecting bone health to improving sleep, mood, and even weight management. These aren't complicated strategies, though. They're accessible, practical, and backed by decades of research and science, which, of course, is Dr. Sabrena Jo's area of expertise. If you've ever wondered where to begin or how to get back on track, this conversation with Dr. Sabrena Jo of the American Council on Exercise offers clear, realistic steps that you can start today. As you listen, think about this. What if just a few small changes each morning could help you feel stronger, sleep better, and move through your day with more energy? We're going to answer those questions and more with our guest from the American Council on Exercise, Dr. Sabrena Jo. Dr. Sabrena Jo, the American Council on Exercise, our Live Long Better host, co-host with the most. It's so great to talk to you. Welcome back always to the program.
Thanks, Paul. As always, I love being here. Can't wait to get into our conversation today.
We're going to have a good one, I think. This will be kind of a first. I don't typically do this, but I do get a fair bit of email, and always about the program, always so complimentary of you, all of your breadth of knowledge, and certainly this wonderful attitude that you have about exercise that I've actually heard from two people over the last 2 weeks now. And as I say, I'm going to start forwarding these on to you just so that you get a tenor of just the sheer positivity around this show. But one of our listeners expressed just this kind of this sense of, okay, this is all great. I love this. It's all very enthusiastic, but where do I start? And I think that's always really a good thing for you and I to bear in mind, because I love exercise. You, of course, you're just a professional's professional with all of this. But if we want to live longer, if we want to feel better right now, what's the simplest place to start? What advice would you give?
You know, Paul, I think after hearing you ask me this question, and this, kind of is spurred by the listener who wrote in.
A little unique for us, I know.
Well, what I tend to do, I'll say that. What I tend to do when I talk with you is I try to be very general, and I talk about something that we like to call physical activity, which is just a very broad general term of just get your body moving, whatever it takes, whatever that looks like for you. And I think some people might be a little either confused or, like you said, overwhelmed, like, well, it's not specific enough. Like, okay, I can move around, sure, but what does that really mean for me? And, point taken. So
yeah, right. Point taken. I agree.
So,
Build from there. Yeah.
Yeah. So physical activity is one. That's honestly, it's any bodily movement, if I'm being very frank. So what we're talking about, I think, is specifically exercise. Because when people think of getting into a program, doing something repeatable, it's exercise. Like I want to have an idea, I want to have a goal, I want to know what I'm committing to, for example. So I would say to the overwhelmed um, topic of being overwhelmed,
Mhm.
I want people who are feeling overwhelmed about where to start is just to zoom way out and
Mhm.
to ask, what is the smallest action that I can repeat tomorrow? Because it's the consistency, it's not even the intensity, especially in the beginning, that what drives your outcomes over time. And so for most people, again, I'm talking in generalities because everyone's an individual. I don't know what people like or what they prefer or what their bodies can tolerate. But for most people, that starting point is as simple as a 10-minute walk or so a 10-minute walk every day, let's just say, let's make it simple,
Yeah.
or I would say or a 2 short strength training sessions a week. So 2 days a week. So if you could think of it as, could you repeat a 10-minute walk for the next 7 days? If you think that's doable, start there. Could you commit to 2 short strength training sessions? And by that, I mean like 20 minutes. Can you commit to 2 20-minute strength training sessions a week? Let's say starting that week tomorrow, then that's where you start. That's it. It's not a full comprehensive program by any means. It's not a complete lifestyle overhaul. Um, and oftentimes what happens is we think we need this perfect plan to start, but what we actually need is a repeatable plan. So something that becomes routine, and then you can build from there. And I am kind of saying that this is like a bare minimum, like a 10-minute walk and 2 strength training days a week, but I can promise you that if you're not already doing something, just introducing those 2 things will have profound effects.
Yeah, thank you for that. You also talk about uh, kind of ramping up a bit, starting a little slowly. And when it comes to kind of working into something, focus on movement and focus on precision there with that movement. Mastering the movement is really something that I hear you say before taking the kind of the big leap forward, and I'm gonna personalize this for us over the course of the next, few months and talk about my own little competition journey. I won't get into too much of that right now,
Yes.
but I will tell you that I'm very much taking this to heart, Dr. Joe, because you have said to me, "Make sure that you're being precise in your movements before you add weight," and I'm gonna really, let everybody know I'm gonna enter a competition about, both, using some free weights for the purpose of squats and then deadlifts, and I really am being very careful right now about the movement that I'm using to get ready. I haven't even started with the weights other than I have a barbell and I'm using no plates, but just a barbell, and that comes directly from you, and so for those of us who are over 60 who may or may not be interested in competing, but we wanna start slowly. You always say that that's so important. Why is that so especially important for us?
First of all, I'm so excited to hear you announce to the world about your
Here we
your
go.
your
Here we
weightlifting
go.
aspirations. That's so wonderful. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna be your biggest cheerleader.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'll need that. Absolutely.
But okay, so to answer your question, and this goes for anyone, but really in particular as we age, the goal of strength training isn't just to build more muscle, it's to improve your movement quality. And so what do I mean by that? Well, if you start with poor movement patterns and then you repeat them as you learn them and then you reinforce them over time, so such that when it comes time to add load or add resistance, you're asking your joints to handle extra weight during a movement that can put them at risk. And then the opposite of that is also true. so that if you learn an exercise and then load good movement patterns, you strengthen them at much lower risk to your joints and other tissues. And so that's why I always emphasize things like learning to do a new exercise slowly and with no or minimal load before introducing speed or adding weight. And of course, performing an exercise with good alignment so that the body learns the correct form immediately, which prevents having to unlearn bad technique later on, which not only sets you up for injury, but unlearning is sometimes more problematic than trying to learn something new, honestly. So for, let's say adults over 50, 60, this is really about protecting the joints, improving coordination, and then building confidence. Um, and then when you layer strength on top of all of that, this quality of movement, it allows someone like you, Paul, to safely prepare for something as ambitious and exciting as a weightlifting competition.
Thank you. Absolutely. I appreciate that. And honestly, I'm doing a lot of this in the home. I have access to a barbell. I don't have lots of plates. I am a big believer in the gym and going to the gym. And I know that I really, as I get into the competition kind of world, I'm going to need to make my way into the gym. A lot of people, though, really want to have this idea. If they're going to begin, perhaps they can begin at home. What is, in your estimation, a realistic kind of beginner-friendly routine look like at home for anything, even a beginner routine for just getting some movement started?
Well, you're correct. You absolutely do not need a gym to get started. Um, and a simple, effective home routine might include, again, those maybe 2 days a week, those short sessions of about 5 or so different exercises. And these exercises that I'm about ready to list off are things that will address these, sometimes you hear them called functional movement patterns, but just movements that we do naturally throughout our day to live our best lives. So, um, for example, so the first exercise would be anything that looks like a squat. So that might be a sit to stand from a chair. It might be a body weight squat just freely on your own. Um, it might be something where you're holding dumbbells and you're doing a squat. Anything that's like this squat pattern. So that's kind of the first exercise. I love that exercise because most people will be able to understand what standing up and sitting down feels like and looks like. And that right there can be an exercise. Um, and then the next exercise is something that involves a push away from your body. Very simple to do if you're doing a push up on a wall or off of a countertop. Most people have a countertop that's around hip height in their home, which makes for a great, I would say, simple to intermediate way to incorporate push-ups if you're not a person who enjoys getting down on the floor, which, that I hate being on the floor if I don't have to be. So if I'm like walking around and trying to like incorporate movement into my day and I see a countertop and I can whip out some push-ups, it's always a win for me. But the next move is something I'm gonna call a hip hinge, and if you can imagine, standing upright on your 2 feet and then keeping your spine pretty neutral or straight, and you just lean forward at the hips, and then you come back. So this is mimicking something like a Romanian deadlift, or some people call like a stiff-legged deadlift. But that pattern alone really helps you engage your lower back and your glutes and hamstrings. And it's very helpful for performing activities of daily living. And that can be done with or without weights. So that's a nice advantage there. The next exercise I would recommend is any kind of step up. So if you've got an exercise bench at home, you can step up onto that. Or if you've got stairs in your house, step up and down off the stairs. The step-ups mimic an important pattern associated with gait. So anytime that you're standing on one foot and then switching over to the other foot, you're really doing this complex balance pattern that we don't really think about it because we're so used to walking around. But when you train it by doing step up exercises, you're really strengthening the hips and the knees that support that kind of movement. And then lastly, I would just say, gripping, carrying something moderately heavy, like bags full of somewhat heavy groceries or even, hand weights, dumbbells if you've got those at home. But carrying those, maybe it's up the stairs, maybe it's just walking in a large oval around a room or a large space in your home, will develop grip strength as well as the shoulder stabilizer muscles. So what we had? We had a squat, we had push-ups, we had a hip hinge or a deadlift, same thing. We had step-ups, and we had, carrying something kind of moderately heavy that you can find in the home. If you could do 1 to 2 sets of that, so maybe 1 round of all those things and then start again, and second round, keep it to 15, 20 minutes, that covers the major movement patterns of your body, and it's not flashy, but it's incredibly effective.
You use the word mimic, and when I think about these complex movement patterns that you refer to, I also in my mind think of a term that I've heard you use previously called imprinting. Is that what you're talking about? And maybe if you tell us a little bit about imprinting, explain what that means and why that's important.
Imprinting happens as you're learning something new. And so it could be related to those functional movements that we were just describing when you're first learning to do them correctly and to do them well. So when you imprint a movement, it means that you're training your body and your nervous system to perform an exercise with consistent, correct technique until it just becomes automatic. And um, the so imprint, this concept is very popular, or it's a common concept in motor learning when you're um, developing and you're learning new skills that are physical in nature, but it happens all throughout your life when you're learning new movements. So when you imprint a movement, your brain and muscles are again learning that coordination pattern. Um, you're building what's sometimes called muscle memory, if you've ever heard of that. And that's just technically related to motor learning. Um, and really the goal is to do it so often and so well that you don't even really have to think about it. Um, and so something that people may remember, very similar to riding a bike or similar to when you're learning how to drive for the first time, when you were learning those skills, it really took a lot of mental focus and energy. But now, at this point in the game, you're doing these things without even really thinking about it. So you can also try to use that concept when you're learning exercise, because there's going to come a point when you progress and you're like we talked about, we're adding weight, we're adding load, we're adding speed. When you're doing those things, you don't wanna have to think about, "Am I doing the form correct?" You just wanna be thinking about, "Okay, I'm amping up the intensity." So when you're, learning or imprinting, it usually involves light weight or just body weight, very slow, controlled repetitions, a focus on form, and then usually higher repetitions, with pretty frequent practice until you really feel like you've mastered that skill.
When I think about the difference between me climbing the stairs and me using the weight bench to actually lift up, there's a difference there. And I think for somebody just starting out, it may be something difficult for them to kind of get their head around. What is the best way to kind of note what's a challenge and perhaps pushing a little bit too far, but yet making some progress. Because I think that when we get out there and, we all of us want to improve quickly, super fast, as a matter of fact, I hear all the time. But you always advocate do it slowly in a way that's methodical, planned, and controlled.
Yeah, so I think the question is, like, knowing the difference between, what's a good appropriate challenge versus too much or too soon maybe. And so a good filter to apply to that, concept is if you're having a good challenge, it should feel like it's effortful, but still able to control it. Um, you could do 2 to 3 more repetitions if you needed to, but you're still kinda stopping short of that. And what I mean stopping short is a lot of times we may have heard for decades, in fact, that you really have to push yourself in strength training to what's called volitional failure, or I simply can't do anymore. I've just, like, spent all my energy, I'm done. And what we're finding with the evidence is that that's not necessarily true, and oftentimes, not necessary and more risky. So you should feel like you've got a couple of repetitions still left in the tank when you stop. Um, and then another good challenge honestly makes you feel better, not worse after you're done. So that's what a good challenge feels like. You're you're effortful, but it's controlled. You could still do 2 to 3 more reps if you needed to, and you feel better, not worse after your workout. But so kind of the opposite of that, what too much looks like, any kind of pain, especially if it's sharp or joint pain, that should not be part of your exercise routine ever. And if it is, pay attention and adjust. Um, Too much often looks like you're losing form just to complete those last few reps. So again, stop well before you lose form because it's not going to help you. It's gonna play havoc with that imprinting thing that we were talking about earlier. And then if you have excessive fatigue that lasts for days after your workout, that's a good sign that you overreached and then you're not giving yourself enough time to heal and recover before you get back into it.
Of course, Sabrena Jo, our guest from the American Council on Exercise, is here with us. And, I have to tell you, as we just take a quick break, what really stands out in our conversations with Dr. Jo is how approachable all of this work is, but particular some of these small changes that we can make. We're not talking about hours in the gym here or dramatic lifestyle changes. We're talking about a few intentional minutes, lifting, moving, and even just stepping outside in the morning light. Let's connect those ideas a bit more now with Dr. Jo. How do these small daily habits work together to support long-term health, especially for our listeners who want results they can actually sustain? Let's get back to our interview with Dr. Sabrena Jo from the American Council on Exercise. Dr. Sabrena Jo is our guest today on Live Long Better. Dr. Sabrena Jo is the Senior Director of Science and Education at the American Council on Exercise. We're talking about a whole bunch of stuff today, Dr. Jo. Resistance training. I want to talk a little bit about working out in sunlight and what light does. But I also want to talk to you about the subject of functional aging, because I think it's also a place where people can kind of get their head around. I've used that a couple times. Get an understanding of what exercise might mean to them if they're just now starting, if they just want to begin the exercise process. What comes of it in terms of functional aging? Things like balance and mobility are all part of it. You and I have talked about it. There's fall prevention. But what does that really mean to us, this idea of functional aging as it relates to exercise as we age?
Well, strength training is one of the most researched and direct ways to maintain independence as we age. So oftentimes when I'm talking about exercise to help with all those things, I really am talking about resistance training or strength training. Um, Cardio has its place, walking is wonderful, but if we're really talking about the most bang for your buck, when we're talking about aging and exercise, it really is strength and resistance training. So, it's so important because strength training will help with your balance because your stabilizer muscles that help hold your joints in place will be stronger and have more endurance. You'll also have better mobility through better joint control, that imprinting thing that we were talking about earlier. And also, believe it or not, strength training does help you keep your optimal range of motion in your joints. A lot of people think that it's just flexibility or just stretching that does that. But if you strength train well and you do it within your joints' intended ranges of motions, mobility is an outcome of that as well. And then lastly, I'll just say in terms of if I can help people like lock into one of the huge benefits of resistance training is fall prevention. And this comes about because if you're thinking about what happens when a person starts to go into a fall, it's a faster and stronger reaction to what's happening that keeps them upright. And so strength training, especially power training, which is a kind of a subset of strength training, when power training is included in your program, as a regular part of it, really, nothing beats it in terms of being functional for longer. And there was actually a recent study that showed that the power training component of these resistance training programs outperformed all the other kinds of exercise when it came to longevity.
I love that. That's so helpful to think of strength training and mobility hand in hand, because often we think of strength training as bulking up, but if you're moving it within that joint's natural kind of range of motion, you're actually preserving it and giving yourself more mobility. That's very, very helpful. Dr. Joe, I want to switch gears for just a minute, and you're so generous with your time, and I'm always very respectful. But I want to talk about morning light. I'm a morning exerciser, and what that might mean to my circadian health, because it's surprising to me. As I was doing some research of this topic today to talk with you, I found that, in fact, morning light really does have bearing on the rest of our day, even sleeping at night. And I wonder if you'll talk for just a second about your research into this subject too, because stepping outside a little bit, you and I have talked about it, can really add some benefit to our whole day, and circadian health is really kind of wrapped up in that, even affecting mood and just kind of our well-being.
Yeah, well, so what my research in my research, I mean, when I've looked at the literature, the evidence that exists, I found some interesting things on this topic. And so, what you were talking about is this morning time, being exposed to light. So, outside morning light, morning daylight, has been studied for its sleep timing effects. And because outdoor light is typically far brighter than indoor lighting, researchers have been interested in how exposure at certain times of day can influence our sleep. So what I what I have found in the literature is that if you're having trouble with falling asleep at a reasonable time at night, then getting outside in the morning, even for 10 to 15 minutes, may help regulate your circadian rhythm. And this then influences your sleep quality and your energy levels throughout the day. However, I do want to say that the evidence is mixed on whether it actually helps with other things like body weight and mood. Um, and also, there are some confounding factors like medications. So, some medications make people more sensitive to sunlight. And it's something to consider for those individuals because, making a commitment to expose yourself daily to 15 minutes of sunlight could be risky. It just kind of depends on the individual. But the, you know, the addition of a practice of exposing yourself to morning sunlight could be something that could help with the sleep timing at night if it's something that you kind of struggle with.
Well, let's kind of wrap up a little bit because, again, you're so generous with your time, and I want to move on to the topic of kind of sorting through what we've talked about and hearing from Dr. Jo about maybe picking 2 habits from today's conversation that could produce kind of a short routine, short physical routine, maybe 15 minutes, maybe adding some morning light in there, just as you suggest, and maybe inspire us a little bit and tell us about what changes we might anticipate over the course of a 30-day routine, a 60-day routine.
Great question. If someone consistently does these 2 things, then in 1 or 2 months, I think it's realistic to see some benefits. So the 2 things, the 2 short strength training sessions per week, and those are separated by a couple of days. So just like within your week, they're separated out. And then, 10 to 15 minutes of walking. And if you can do it in the morning sun, even better. So if that can be done daily or most days of the week, then those 2 things, I think you'll likely notice improvements in your energy throughout the day. You might have better sleep consistency. You might get more confident in your movement. And you could see small but meaningful gains in strength. And that would probably likely happen over around the 2-month or more mark. But again, if you're consistently doing these things, then these benefits will likely show up. And honestly, and maybe even most importantly, if you're a person who starts to do these things consistently, you'll see yourself as someone who takes care of your health. And it's an identity shift. So these are very proactive things that you're doing for yourself. And that can carry over into other aspects of health as well. So it can be a powerful thing. And what I love about the walking daily and the 2 short strength training sessions a week is, as we've discussed in our conversation today, it doesn't need a special equipment or a gym membership. It can be done at home and with what you already have.
So helpful. I'm going to talk about introducing some of the power-oriented lifting into subsequent conversations with you, but I certainly am not trying to start immediately with any of this. I want my form to be right. I want to have a plan for this, and I certainly want to do it in a guided way. And you've been so inspirational about this subject. It's really never too late to start. I'm 69. I'll be 70. I'm hitting my stride, Sabrena Jo.
Yes, of course you are. Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't? Dr. Sabrena Jo, Live Long Better, Senior Director of Science and Education at the American Council on Exercise. It is always so great to talk to you. Thanks for inspiring me, and thanks for inspiring our listeners. It's great to see and hear from them about some of their interests. I just want to encourage you all, as you're paying attention to Dr. Jo, write down a thought or 2 and send it in. We'd love to answer more of them. But Dr. Jo, thank you for your time. It's so great to talk with you always. And I look forward to our next conversation for Live Long Better.
Likewise, Paul, and I'm excited to hear about your journey to your competition.
Yes, we will be planning for that conversation. That'll be a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you. My thanks to Dr. Sabrena Jo from the American Council on Exercise, joining us on our ongoing series, Live Long Better. She's joined us today. She joins us regularly to share such practical, encouraging guidance. You know, her message today is clear. You don't need to overhaul your life to improve your health. A few minutes of strength training, a short walk in the morning light, these small steps can lead to meaningful change over time. To learn more about today's conversation and to explore our full library of episodes, including all of our work with ACE, on our Live Long Better series with Dr. Sabrena Jo. Please visit us at notold-better.com. You'll find resources, expert insights, conversations designed to help you live well at every age. You can also follow us on Twitter at NotOldBetter and on Instagram at NotOldBetter. You'll find updates, highlights, all the behind-the-scenes stuff that I know you really enjoy, so check it out there. This is the Not Old Better Live Long Better series with the American Council on Exercise, a production of NOBS Studios. Please be well, be safe. Let's talk about better. The Not Old Better Show on radio and podcast. Thanks for listening today. Please join me again next time on Live Long Better. Thanks, everybody.